Welcome to Jolene's Books and Writers Talk, where stories begin long before the first page, and writing is more than words on a screen. I'm your host, Jolene McFadden, and each week I sit down with authors and publishing professionals to talk about craft, creativity, and the real life behind the books. These episodes are sponsored by Southern Dragon Publishing. Please take a few seconds and hit the like button, share this and other episodes, subscribe to our channel, and even leave a nice comment below. Let's begin.
Hi, my name is Gladys Barrio, and I'm the author of the book Empowered by the Dream, A Journey of Resilience. I'm originally a chemist. However, when I retired, I decided that I wanted to write this book for my grandkids, my daughters, my nephews. So this is the story of a family, the whole family. And I wanted to leave those for posterity, the stories of the struggles that our ancestors went through so that our future generation could have a better life. The book is about 3 generations as they went through war, poverty, and multiple exiles. I'm sure many of you in the audience have ancestors that came from other countries. And probably many of your ancestors endured similar situations. My ancestors came from Spain, so this book will transport you to Spain in the early 1900s, and in 1936, you will live through the Spanish Civil War, considered one of the bloodiest civil wars ever recorded. You will live through the ordeals that my family encountered, including my mother and her siblings escaping from the horrors of the war. On the other side of the family, you will meet 5 orphan siblings and their ordeal while escaping the horrible economic crisis that Spain was experiencing at that time, including hungry, homeless kids walking in the streets. Then they managed to escape to what they envision as the dreamland, either as a stowaway. There's a chapter that narrates the story of this stowaway of one of my grandfather's side, or crossing the oceans with the dangers of World War I. Then as these families get to Cuba, you will learn and hopefully experience how through their hard work and efforts, they created a better life for them and their families. And like I said, there's a romance that flourishes through these stories. And then in 1959, their lives were suddenly overturned when tragedy struck again, when the communist revolution robbed them of their lives that they had so relentlessly built. At that point, they were forced into another exile and faced with having to start from zero once again. As one of my reviewers said, Empowered by the Dream is a compelling story which explores the immigrant experience, the discrimination, the cultural barriers, the cyclical nature of history, the enduring human experience, and the quest for belonging and prosperity. Yet amidst the hardships, they also find moments of joy and love, underscoring the resilience and strengths that have passed down through the generations.
I love historical memoirs about families. Even if they're fictionalized just a little bit, there's elements of truth in there. Y'all came to America from?
Right. Then from Cuba, we went to different places. Myself and my sister, as we were 9, we went to Jamaica and we were in a boarding school. We didn't know the language, so there's a whole chapter that relates my struggle as a 9-year-old to be alone with no parents in a school where I did not understand the language, and the teacher was spanking me every day with a ruler because I did not understand that I had to do homework. And then after that, my parents, when they realized that the government was going to confiscate everything, they finally left Cuba, picked us up in Jamaica, and we went to Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico gave us a really good opportunity. My father was always very grateful of Puerto Rico and the opportunities. So they worked really hard. And then my family was like the tunnel of hope for the rest of the family, because as the rest of the family were encountering that their kids were going to be taken to the military, the communist regime was going to take the younger boys to the military and the girls to some mandatory work in the fields where there was a lot of corruption and they were desperate. My father acted as a tunnel of hope, helping all of them come down. Some of my cousins came and lived with us until their parents could leave the island. So it narrates that struggle. And then all the family, they finally made it to Puerto Rico and some to the United States. That's the story of those multiple exiles from Spain to Cuba and from Cuba to the United States and starting all over again.
I was curious. This is just something I've experienced. I know that when I've had three different teachers in Spanish in middle school and high school, one was from Spain, one was from Puerto Rico, and the other one was from Mexico. So each of the Spanish languages, depending on where you are, you had to learn a different dialect, even though the language is mostly the same. The accents are different, the patterns of speech is different. How did you find that? As a child, you probably had a little bit easier time of it. Jamaican was probably very hard, but when you got to Puerto Rico and
Let me tell you, it was really hard. I went through 9 different schools. I was always a very responsible, studious girl. I tried to work hard in my studies. And many times I noticed that I skip. I have a lot of lagoons in my knowledge, even in Spanish and in English. And sometimes in Puerto Rico, some of the schools are in English language, and most of them are in Spanish. So moving from one school to the other, you find that yourself that you have a lot of lagoons in your knowledge. But still, I was motivated by my chemistry teacher in high school, and I finished high school. I started college at the age of 17, and I became in love with chemistry, and I finally ended up with a PhD in chemistry from the University of Miami. So that has been my passion all the time. Science, not only chemistry, physics also. I don't know what drove me after I retired that I said, I need to write this book for my family, and I changed careers. After I finished college, after I did research, scientific research for a while, and I also became an administrator and professor at the university. So I did a little bit of all of that.
being an academic, you're no stranger to writing and publishing nonfiction. Did you find any support as far as turning over to memoirs? You have to really tell a story instead of teach a subject, and there's a different mindset.
Yes, since I wanted to start writing some of these stories, I always loved school. Even when I was an administrator, I was taking school law, administration courses. So when I retired, I went to this program called Oldies, the Usher Lifelong Learning Program for people 55. They have different universities throughout the United States through a grant, and they offer these magnificent courses. And I took creative writing. So I enrolled in courses on creative writing and writer's workshop. And I met a lot of people that were very supportive. And from there, I joined the South Florida Writers Association, and I joined critique groups. And I have had all this support. They not only support, critique my work, but also they push me to keep writing. Right now, I finished the book and you have to write more. You need to keep writing. They push me to keep writing. So it's excellent. I'm enjoying this second career tremendously.
That's what most writers groups do. They help you get that first one out, and then they say, okay, there's one. Now you got to do another one and just keep on going.
Correct.
Do you think you would venture out into mysteries, or are you're liking the historical fiction romance kind of thing?
Right now, I'm writing another book, and it's based on the hurricane in Nashville, the recent hurricane Helene. I happen to be heading to a wedding the day that the hurricane hit Nashville. It's the story of every single member of that family that were coming from all parts of the United States, even from Puerto Rico, to that wedding. It's amazing, the stories. And one of our family members had to be rescued by FEMA. So it's also nonfiction. It's historical, but it's more recent history. But it's a different type of story. They always ask me, did I finally get married? I said, you have to read my book.
That's a good hook.
Yeah.
All righty. You lived in Miami for quite a number of years?
I lived the first 9 years of my life in Cuba, and then I went to Jamaica, and I lived there for a year and a half, and then from there to Puerto Rico. And then when I went to graduate school, I decided to go to Ohio State University. I'm a Buckeye. So I went to Ohio State, but I found it too cold. I was used to the weather in Puerto Rico and Cuba, and Ohio was so cold. So I did my first year of my master's degree. By the way, I did my undergraduate at University of Puerto Rico and then my master's at Ohio State, and then University of Miami offered me a joint program of master's and PhD. So I decided to move to Miami, and I got married, and that's where I have stayed for the last 20 years.
So you were probably there when Andrew came through.
Yes, I was. And let me tell you, I have stories about that I can write also. Yes, my front door was completely open and I was out of town. I was in Puerto Rico at one of my niece's wedding when I received a call saying there's a hurricane coming. And I said, oh, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. My house was completely open and destroyed. And then I had to fly back in. And it was an experience. Yes, I was here.
Yes, the joys of living in Florida. You just never
Yeah,
know.
I
All
know.
righty. Let's see. I have a couple of author type questions.
Yes.
This is a question that most authors don't really think about, but do you distinguish between being a writer and being an author? And if so, what is your distinguishing marks?
That's a very good question. I always say I'm not an author. I'm not a writer because this is something that I started doing recently. But of course, I'm an author because once you publish a book, then you're an author. But as a writer, I have to continue growing tremendously. It's a daily task of improving yourself. You can be an author, but maybe you're not the writer that you would like to be.
All
And that's
right.
why I think this book is wonderful. And I have had excellent reviews and I have had 2 awards. But I believe that my next book is going to be even better because I develop as a writer.
Writers are required to read a lot. Uh,
Yes.
but when you're relaxing and you're reading, what kind of genres do you like best to read?
Right now, I like many things. The least that I like is fiction. I don't like fiction. I like historical nonfiction. I do that because I like history and I feel the importance of knowing history in order to be an educated citizen. Like my daughters, I always tell them when they tell me these things about the political situation, I said, you need to read the history. You need to know what happened before. So for me, history is very important. But right now, the book that I'm reading is from C.S. Lewis, Surprised by Joy. I wanted to see what he had to say about that. So that's the book that I'm reading right now. When I retire, I decided to read some of the Hispanic Nobel Prize authors like Mario Vargas Llosa and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I read some of that. I enjoy good writers because I enjoy what they do with the words, with the sentences, how they are able to use the vocabulary and the words to create an image for the reader. So any book that gives me that, I enjoy it. Mhm.
Unique perspective. Are you traditionally published or indie published or a hybrid?
My book was independently published.
And did you have it translated into other languages?
It's being translated right now. I'm glad you're asking me that because at the Miami Book Fair, there were many people interested in my book. And many of them were telling me, do you have it in Spanish? Because since the story is immigrants, and in Miami, we have a lot of those. I said, I would like to give this book to my mother, to my father, to my uncle, but they don't speak English that well to read a book. So my editor is the person who also helped me to self-publish the book. She's right now working on the translation to Spanish. Yes.
As out of curiosity, when they do the translation, is there like a traditional Spanish dialect that you have to do for reading materials? Or are they going?
No, lately I have read so many great Hispanic authors. I noticed that if you just take a book and you translate it, you are going to lose the essence of the book. You need to work with the ideas. Right now, my editor is working on the mechanical translation. And from there, we have to massage each one of the chapters to bring the beauty. The Spanish language is also a very rich language that has a lot of wording, and the formation of the sentences is completely different. So I need to keep reading a lot. Sometimes I read those books and I go, wow, this is beautiful. So I would like my version in Spanish to be like that. I don't want it to be a technical translation. I want it to be something really rich.
That's a lot of work.
Yes, I know. I'm a hardworking person. I have always been, but I'm a perfectionist. So I don't like to put out anything that is not as good as it can be.
So no Google Translate for you.
Okay.
No, because that's what I would think you would start with is Google Translate. But I know that sometimes it doesn't understand the nuances of the language to express ideas and emotions and that sort of stuff. So you actually have to have a human there.
That's right.
Good luck with that. And I look forward to seeing your Spanish and your English version side by side. You going to change covers? Or are you going to try to stick to the same cover?
I love this cover. The title is going to be slightly, because if you translate empower, the word is empoderado, and that's not a word that sounds well in Spanish. So I think the new Spanish is going to be el poder de un sueño, which is the power of a dream. No, not
Oh,
empowered by the, but the power of a dream. So things like that. But the cover, I love this cover. This is a picture I took at Cape Fear in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I love the colors. So I
okay.
think I'm going to use the same cover.
So you're going to have to re-copyright your book, I imagine, in with the Spanish version because it's considered a whole other edition.
It's a whole other edition, yeah.
There's two questions that I usually try to ask every author. First is, what advice would you give somebody just starting out in this particular field, historical memoirs? Two things that you found helpful and two things that you found didn't work out for you.
Okay, one advice that I'm going to give, and I have been giving this advice to many people, writing a book is a huge task. It's a lot of work. So if you think about, I'm going to write a book, it's overwhelming. My advice is do it as I did. Just do one story at a time. What I did was I started writing one story, one story, one story. And then suddenly I realized that all these stories can be put together. So I think that it's more manageable if you think of one situation at a time, one story. Like in the new book that I'm writing, it's not only my experience of the hurricane, of going to the wedding, but I'm also interviewing family members so that they can see their point of view. I'm just putting all these chapters, and then later, my editor is very good at helping me put all these things together. That's the first advice. Don't try to do it all at once. Just take one at a time, and times fly, and by the time you realize, you have the whole book. So that was the first question. And can you repeat me the second question?
What should they avoid?
Don't ever give up, because some days we start writing and things flow and it's beautiful, and some other days they don't. So don't give up. It's gonna come, it's gonna happen. Keep trying. If it's not flowing, just stop writing and read more. And reading helps you, it's going to bring ideas on how to continue.
Speaking of that, if you're unable to, it's called writer's block. What favorite tricks do you use to help yourself get over that and continue on creating?
Sometimes I don't feel too much like writing, and then you sit down and then you start writing and then you start getting excited about it. Don't give up, keep trying. If it's not working, stop, read, and then go back. Or change to another chapter. If you say this section is not flowing well, leave it on the side. Have a folder. I have a folder with all the different chapters, and then move to another one, work on that. And then when you come back, you're going to be able to do better on that. Don't give up. Just keep trying, try different things, do a little bit every day, and read a lot.
Do you have a set routine for yourself? Like you have to have your hot tea, your hot coffee, your cold drink over here, and the music is flowing or the music is off. Do you have that kind of thing set up?
Let me tell you, I have this cute little office in my house. This is like my chapel. And then I always have a candle. I love to have a candle. I play Mozart. I like to do it in the morning after I have breakfast. And I have a lot of interruptions because I have an elderly mother that I have to take care of, and I have my grandkids, and I have to pick them up from school, and I have to tutor them. I have 5 grandkids. So my life is complicated, but I always take at least a few hours a day that I don't answer the phone, I don't answer the door. I just sit with my candle and my soft music. And that's the time for me. And I enjoy it so much that it's not an obligation. If I haven't had enough time in the morning, I get home and I just want to run to my office and turn on my candle and my music, and I want that time for myself. So it's something that I really enjoy. It's good to have a place that is inspiring to you.
Ah, yes, yes. The
Yeah,
sign on the door, do not disturb the
that's
attorney.
right. That's right.
All righty, Miss Gladys, thank you so much for participating. You've been listening to Jolene's Books and Writers Talk. You'll find links to my guests, their books, and additional resources in the show notes. If this conversation inspired you, follow or subscribe wherever you listen. And join me again next week for another journey into the world of writing.